Hey there. Today, I'm going to talk about one of the most anticipated characters from Marvel Crisis Protocol and biggest villains in Marvel's history, Thanos. And fair warning, there's a lot to talk about. My name is Nate, and welcome to the Gamers Guild. Alright, before we get into the big bad purple guy, I'm going to do something I haven't done in a few months. I noticed recently that over 60% of viewers, or the amount of time watched, is made up of people who are not subscribed to the channel yet. With that in mind, if you have enjoyed the content of this channel, please hit that subscribe button if you haven't already. I would really like to hit 1,000 subscribers by August to help continue to grow the channel, and 1,000 subs in a year would be quite the highlight for myself personally. But I don't want to drone on about that when Atomic Mass Games has released everything we need to know about the Mad Titan who courts death. I do also want to point out that this video is only going to be covering the Thanos that works for a normal game of Marvel Crisis Protocol. I plan on doing another video covering everything about this amazing looking Ultimate encounter once I have my hands on it, because it looks epic enough to have its own mini-series, to be honest. So let's talk about Thanos the Mad Titan, who has the alter ego of Thanos. On his healthy side, he has 8 stamina, moves medium on a 50mm base, is size 3 and has a threat value of 6. His physical and energy defenses are both at 3, while his mystical defense is 4. His first attack is simply called Strike. It is a physical attack that has a range of 2, strength of 6, and a power cost of 0. It has that also familiar bit about gaining power equal to the damage dealt. As well, Thanos has something that rather terrifying on this attack. On a wild, before damage is dealt, Thanos may throw the target character away short. Why is this so terrifying, you ask? Thor has the same ability on his strike, except Thor doesn't. Thor has a limit of up to size 4 characters. Thanos notably doesn't have that restriction. So, in the future, maybe a size 5 giant man getting tossed by Thanos seems, well, as I said earlier, terrifying. His next attack is also pretty good. Cosmic Blast is an energy attack with a range of 3, strength of 5, and a power cost of 0 if you want it to be. I say this because if Thanos needs to hit hard, he can spend up to 3 extra power, and for each power he rolls 1 extra die during that attack, which means that this can be an 8 dice energy attack for 3 power, which is still quite strong. As well, those extra dice give you more chances to hit a wild and activate Titan's Will. After the attack is resolved, Thanos can then push the target character away short, and then the pushed character gains the slow special condition. A little bit of rules minutia here. If a character cannot be pushed by this effect, like Vision in his enhanced density form, he will not be slowed. Anyways, this attack gives Thanos a little bit of extra range, and 8 dice is also just quite strong if he has some extra power. I say if because he has some great ways to spend his power with his superpowers, but before we dive into those, we finally get to talk about the Black Order's affiliation bonus, Death's Agenda, which simply and brutally says, when an enemy character is KO'd, this character's controlling player scores 1 victory point. While obviously there are several nice things about this ability, one that stands out to me is that it doesn't matter how that enemy character is knocked out. As long as Thanos' card is on the healthy side, you will get a victory point. So even if the KO happens from Cosmic Cubes, Gamma Shelters, or even a tactic card like the Price of Failure, the Black Order will be 1 step closer to victory, or 1 point closer. So now that we know what Thanos brings to the table in the terms of his leadership ability, let's take a look at those superpowers. The first is an active superpower called Cosmic Portal that costs 2 power. It says, choose another character within range 4 of this character. Place the chosen character within range 2 of its current position. A character can only be placed by this superpower once per turn. Choose another character. So just to clarify, the only restriction on this superpower is Thanos can't use it on himself, but everyone else on the table is fair game, which means that this ability adds mobility to the characters that need it, like Black Dwarf, and also gives Thanos a really nasty control element to his game plan. Activating him late in a round and moving your characters onto objectives or your opponent's models off of objectives is going to be really strong. This can even be used to pull an enemy model into range so Thanos can get in his strikes, or maybe after Thanos is done beating on someone, he can then teleport them out of range so that the backlash isn't as bad. Cosmic Portal is a board-altering ability that deserves to be on a 6 threat character. His next superpower that is also insanely good is a reactive ability that costs 2 power called Death's Decree. It says when another allied character that is within range 4 of Thanos targets an enemy character with an attack, Thanos can then use this superpower. If the attacking character is healthy, they add 2 dice to the attack roll. If the attacking character is injured, they get to add 4 dice to the attack roll. And thankfully there is the line of text that this superpower can only be used once per turn. I don't really feel like I have to say how powerful this ability is, but the best 2 ways I can communicate it are, Shuri can offer rerolls, and Thanos can offer dice. More dice is always going to be better than rerolls because you have a much higher ceiling and the same floor. Not to mention the extra dice have a chance to be crits to then get even more dice, but also rerolls can't help if you roll really well or roll failures. As well, even just using this on a healthy character is the equivalent of any of the tactic cards where you pay power for dice in an attack. Thanos is a walking 1-2 punch for his teammates, and considering who all is in the Black Order, that's kinda terrifying. And as if he didn't already have enough awesome superpowers, he has an innate ability called Being of Immeasurable Power. The first part of this ability reads similar to what Corvus, Proxima, and Dorf have, with one significant change. When this character would suffer damage from an enemy effect, reduce the amount suffered by 1. Did you catch the difference? Because I didn't notice it the first time I read through Thanos' card. There is no to a minimum of 1 damage clause. So Thanos can straight up ignore collision damage when he is thrown into something, and suddenly all of his defense values basically go up by 1, and it is a guaranteed 1 with no extra clause. It is important to note that there are things that will still chip in on Thanos to cause 1 damage. Bleed, for instance, is not an enemy effect, so Thanos being a being of immeasurable power doesn't stop him from bleeding. Similarly, any objectives like Origin Bombs, Gamma Shelters, and Cosmic Cube Fragments will also get a bit of damage in on the Mad Titan. So that was just the first half of what this innate ability does. The other half allows Thanos to carry up to 2 Infinity Gems rather than the normally allowed 1, and he may also use the active and reactive superpowers of those gems without paying their cost. And I will dive down in the numerous possibilities in a moment for the different gems, but first I want to finish Thanos' character card and review all the gems and what they do. With that said, his last superpower is also innate, and it is Gem Bearer for all 6 gems: Mind, Power, Reality, Soul, Space, and Time. As well, while Thanos can bleed, he cannot be stunned as he is immune to that condition. And unlike most characters, Thanos has some pretty drastic differences on his injured side. The first and smallest of which is that his stamina goes up by 1 to have 9 stamina, and he loses his extremely versatile superpower Cosmic Portal. But his biggest change is his leadership ability. Death's Agenda will now read, during the modified dice step of an attack, an allied character may suffer up to 3 damage. For each damage suffered, it may reroll 1 of its attack dice. It is worth noting if an attacking character becomes dazed or KO'd during the attack immediately ends. So you can't daze yourself in a last-ditch effort to take an opponent's model down with you. This ability helps with what the front side of Thanos' card wants to do, but it no longer rewards you with victory points, which is very interesting, but helps one of my favorite ways to play that might work well with the Black Order. Alright, that covers Thanos' cards, so let's talk about all of the gems. The Mind Gem is the one we know the best because it is the one we knew first. It costs 1 threat to wield and allows its bearers to move enemy characters about, but it can only be used once per turn. The Power Gem also costs 1 threat and gives its wielder 2 power instead of the normal 1 that comes from holding a gem. We then learned about the most expensive gems with the Time Gem and Space Gem. They both cost 2 threat to wield and have active superpowers that can only be used once per turn. The Time Gem gives an extra action, which, seems good, while the Space Gem allows you to teleport an allied character that is within range 3 up to within range 2 of its current position. And with Thanos' reveal, we finally got the last 2 gems. The Reality Gem costs 1 power and gives its wielder a fantastic innate ability. When that character is rolling dice as part of an attack, defense, dodge, or even an interact roll, they can treat 1 failure as a critical result. This is so very, very strong. First of all, consistency in a dice game will always be good. And since you never have had a way to interact with the failures before, that's great, not to mention you don't even have to spend power for this consistency. Where this gem is sneaky good though is for any objectives that require a critical result. I'm looking at your Kree Power Core, Scroll Infiltrator, or even the Origin Bombs, as this will let you net a success. You will often be able to also then avoid damage the meteor can do to you. As well, doubling your chances to claim one of the extraction objectives I just mentioned is huge. So I'm a really big fan of this card regardless of its interaction with objectives. It's just a really strong effect. Especially when we look at Corvus Glaive, who can also take this gem, and then in combination with Glaive's Edge to make an attack that has successes on 7 out of 8 sides of the dice now. And the final gem to talk about is the Soul Gem. It is very reminiscent of the Power Gem, but I think in most cases it'll be better than the Power Gem. For one threat, the wielder of the Soul Gem gets the innate ability of whenever an enemy character within range 4 of this character uses an active or reactive superpower, this character gains 1 power after the effect is resolved. The Soul and Power Gems are similar in that their main function is to generate power for their holder. The Soul Gem does have a lower floor, but not that much lower of one, and the ceiling is much higher. It can easily net back 2 to 4 power over the course of a round from just the innate ability and not including the extra 1 the character would get during the power phase. So now that we know the function of all the gems, let's talk about which ones Thanos would like to pick up first in his quest for galactic conquest. Before I go any further, I want to say, please try out any combination of gems you want. It is because of the experimentation that people are finding ways to have great successes with characters like Crossbones or Corvus using the Time Gem, which I was skeptical of. So maybe try out some of the things you want to try and have some things that I suggest here. But at the end of the day, have fun. We are finally getting Thanos to play with on the table. So, disclaimer done, the 2 gems I am most skeptical of on Thanos are the Power Gem and Space Gem. The Power Gem is not bad, as a matter of fact it's still really strong. However, I think because of the Soul Gem's much higher potential, it should easily break even with the Power Gem, if not just beat it outright. The 2 places I can see myself being very wrong here is the power consistency timing and Battery Thanos. Despite the Soul Gem's new and shiny appeal with its new gem smell, one thing that the Power Gem does beat it out in is consistency. Not in overall power gained. I think the Soul is the way to go for the power gain overall, but if you're a more calculated player than I am, or have a couple of turn 1 or turn 2 plays that rely on a certain amount of power, then the timing of when you have that power may be better than the extra power that can be gained, because it could be given to Thanos at a point when the turn where it just isn't as impactful. Battery Thanos is where you would just want both of these gems so that Thanos becomes a beacon of support and control, and with his superpowers, a great way for him to play big tactic cards like Follow Me. The other gem I mentioned not being too hot on is the Space Gem. And again, I am fully ready to eat crow on this one or be wrong, because the Space Gem with Thanos' own cosmic portal can basically be treated as a once per turn Gamma Launch. And if you weren't aware, Gamma Launch is a really strong as a repositioning tool that can change the outlook of a game really quickly. On the downside though, this one gem puts Thanos up to 8 threat, which is a mind-boggling number, and it is for a redundant effect that Thanos already has access to on his healthy side. The other 4 gems I am a little bit more excited to test and experiment with. I have already talked a little bit about the Soul Gem and what it can provide, especially if Thanos goes in facing like an Avenger team. And I think Thanos will appreciate having some additional power gain, especially since he can't be stunned. So if you're fielding Thanos and want to make sure he can typically support the team with his Death's Decree, I'd point you to this one first. And if you're going all in on Thanos, I will personally start by always making sure that of the 2 gems I put on him, the Soul Gem is one of them to keep him amply supplied. Another gem that easily fits into Thanos' glove is the Mind Gem, but only if you're wanting to play him in a certain way. In order to get the most out of the Mind Gem, you'll want to make sure you're usually activating Thanos later in the round so that he can use the Mind Gem along with his Cosmic Portal to control different objective points, or at least move your opponents off of them. So if it fits your style of gameplay with control and stuff, Thanos works really well with it. And I think the cost of 1 threat versus the cost of the Space Gems 2 is enough of a difference to make it more worthwhile. However, I do think that the other 2 threat gem might be worth taking it on the big guy. While Thanos' attacks are not incredibly broken attacks or something that puts him on the punching levels of a beat-up Hulk, his attacks are still quite powerful. Pumping power into Cosmic Blast will cause consistent pain, and we have already seen what a strike with 6 dice and a throw can do with Thor. If you haven't seen it, it's really strong because those throws get to act as extra attacks onto other characters. As well, the collision damage is a good way to help keep chipping in a bit of damage here or there, unless you're Thanos. With the time gem not costing any power to activate, it does make for a very expensive model threat-wise. It also turns a 6 threat support with some good attacks into an absolute monster, because he can now easily move into the perfect position and double attack, or maybe even triple attack, and because none of his attacks require expenditure of power, he can still also fill in the role of a fantastic support. Don't get me wrong, this doesn't suddenly make Thanos broken. At this point, he is the threat equivalent of Captain Marvel and Vision, 2 of my favorite heavy hitters in the Avengers. But I wouldn't really be comfortable placing a bet on a fight in a 2v1 in that situation either. The last gem then is, of course, the reality gem. I don't really feel like there is too much to say here. Consistency is good, especially on a bigger character. Could you imagine Thor getting the reality gem and just going up to 6 threat? I don't know if I could ever go back. Anyways, I think the reality gem might make its way onto Corvus more often than Thanos for me because of the synergy with Glaive's Edge on his attacks. But it still isn't going to look bad on him either. As far as gem combos, I think that you want to stay in the 6 to 9 threat range for Thanos. The space and time gem together can be devastating, but that's also 10 threat into a single model. I think battery Thanos could be a lot of fun for 8 threat, but personally if I load up Thanos, it'll be usually with the time and soul gems. I'm curious though, let me know down in the comments what gems you are planning on running on Thanos so that we can all kind of share ideas and see where that's going. So now that we have completed the small side quest of talking about the gems, let's get back to the main task of talking about Thanos by diving into some pros and cons. Pros. He's going to be a much more forgiving 6 threat character than the Hulk. Hulk only has 3 more stamina than Thanos, and Thanos has the moment of catching his breath when he gets dazed, not to mention the by far and away better defensive stats and abilities. He's also able to play a unique support role with his team affiliated or otherwise with his Cosmic Portal and Death's Decree that we haven't seen out of a more expensive model yet, and I think he will be able to play into those strengths quite well. And of course his attacks are on about Thor's level, which is quite strong. And then for that 1 extra threat over Thor, we also get the aforementioned superior stamina, defensive abilities, and support abilities all wrapped up into one big purple bundle. And thankfully there isn't too much to hold against him in the form of cons. Really, I just have 2 cons and then a little bit of a warning. The cons are the lack of a superpower throw and his leadership ability change-up. The lack of a throw probably keeps him balanced on the tabletop with all of the additional toys that he has to play with, but I think it is something that the Black Order would have benefited from since now Black Dwarf is the only affiliated member with the ability to get a guaranteed throw on a character. And yes, Maw also has a throw, but it is much more board reliant since he can only throw terrain. The leadership ability is something that I struggle with on where it falls on the love-hate scale. It falls well in this game plan of pushing for some extra victory points early, and then after a few knockouts being able to just control the board, but the change-up is one that is extremely aggressive, and I think I will need some time with it on the table before I feel comfortable diving too far into it one way or the other. The trap that I want to mention is the gems themselves. It'll be good to experiment with the different combinations to see what Thanos can do with them, but also make sure you are keeping in mind that you need to round out your team to support Thanos because he still can't win the game on his own. So just keep in mind what you're sacrificing. And speaking of traps, let's talk about Power of the Cosmos. It is an active team tactic card that allows Thanos to gain access to the Power of the Cosmos attack once during this activation for 4 power. It is an Area 1 attack with a strength of 6 and a power cost of 0, but you would have already paid the 4 for the card itself. The nifty extra bits are that this attack's range gets +1 for each gem Thanos has to a max of Area 5, which I'm guessing is more so for the ultimate encounter, but for a normal game gets up to range 3. As well, enemy characters damaged by this attack are pushed away short from Thanos. The main reason I am not a fan of this tactic card is because of all the requirements to make it worthwhile. 1. It takes away one of the most limited resources in the game as a tactic card slot. 2. An Area 1 attack isn't too grand, so you almost have to have a 7 or 8 threat Thanos to make this really worth it. 3. Thor usually prefers using his strike over his God of Thunder, which also has one more strength than this attack. And Thanos has that same strike, which is so good because of the throw. With all of that said, if you enjoy playing tactic cards like Ricochet Blast and Thunder Wave that present a powerful one-time attack, then this seems to be right up that alleyway. It is not really in my playstyle though. And now let's finally take a look at the different affiliations that Thanos would be happy to tag along with. And I think he would be quite good with the Avengers and the Cabal as a good mix of a beater and support that these characters would enjoy having. And Thanos would enjoy getting the extra power or discounts to have his superpowers more easily available on standby. I don't see the Guardians and Wakandans rerolls mattering to him that much, but as with any high threat character, the affiliation of Asgard benefits Thanos greatly. But at that point you're already looking at 11 points of threat for 2 characters. So there isn't a lot of room for gems or extra characters after you throw in Valkyrie or Hela. Obviously though, Thanos will do well with the Black Order. The aggressive leadership abilities and offensive support options all play really well into what Thanos can contribute to his home team, and we can appreciate the 3 Black Order tactic cards even more now. Price of Failure is a great card to have after a character's big last-ditch attack or activation, where they then try to spend all of their life for rerolls and then sacrifice themselves to power the rest of the team, who seems to be a bit power hungry, Big Boss included. Mothership's teleport on top of Thanos' own cosmic portal just screams of possibilities that I cannot foresee, but will make the Black Order extremely mobile. And while Blood Despair doesn't spark any great synergies or tactics that come to the top of my mind at least, being able to get a swing off with a character before they can be dazed can lead to some great interruption of your opponent's plan, especially if that attack dazes them, not to mention the possibility of a throw or a push to break up their game plan, which many of these characters have, by the way. That is all I have for this week, but I'm super excited with some of the plans I have coming up, including a product review, another roster review, and more. Again, if you haven't already and do enjoy this content, please hit that subscribe button. It's a small little personal goal, and it would be awesome if you could help me get there. As always, thanks for watching, and until next time, keep on gaming.